I noticed something strange that night while finishing small chores. It was not serious enough to alarm anyone, yet it stayed in my mind. I could not look away from it anymore. The amount was small. Anyone else might dismiss it in a second. But something inside me said it did not belong there. I searched my memory for where it came from. I tried to match it to groceries, school needs, or household bills. Nothing fit cleanly. I closed the app and took a long breath. Maybe I was only tired after carrying too many things today. Or maybe I was starting to lose my grip. By then, I understood one thing clearly. There was a part of our money I did not fully understand. The discomfort came from that silence more than the number itself. Morning returned in its usual shape. I prepared breakfast while checking the weekly groceries in my head. Everything looked ordinary, and that was usually enough. I was the one who kept small things moving. Bills, lunch money, and daily needs passed through my hands without noise. Repetition had become its own kind of confidence. I never thought of myself as an expert. I simply believed I understood where our money went. For a long time, that belief felt solid. Each week I wrote enough to feel settled. Not every detail mattered, only the sense that nothing was drifting. My notes became a small shelter. My husband rarely stepped into these routines. He trusted that I would handle them, and I accepted that trust without question. It seemed simple then. We never truly sat down to talk about money. Life kept moving, and we moved with it. Strange how silence can feel complete for years. Then a different thought arrived. Was enough truly the same as safe, or had I grown used to not looking deeper? The question stayed longer than I expected. I realized I had not been paying attention for some time. I had been maintaining habits more than noticing truth. That morning felt quieter because of it. That afternoon, I opened the expense notes again. I wanted to see if last night's number would look different in daylight. It did not move at all. I scrolled back through the previous week, then further into last month. A small discomfort began to gather shape. The amounts were never large, but they returned too often to ignore. I could not remember entering any of them. I tried to be reasonable with myself. Maybe I forgot or typed something wrong. Simple explanations always feel kinder. Still, the feeling stayed with me. Each time I saw the numbers, it sharpened. Something unseen kept asking for attention. I started checking every detail. Dates, times, and transaction types. It all looked too neat to be accidental. I closed the notes again. Part of me did not want to continue. Some answers change a room once they arrive. Then I understood what troubled me most. This was no longer about numbers. It was about trust becoming fragile. That night, I chose not to ask anything yet. Silence felt easier than opening a conversation I wasn't ready for. Even while the house grew quiet, my thoughts kept moving. I kept cooking, sweeping, and putting things back in place. From the outside, the evening looked ordinary. Inside, a quiet tension stayed with me. Then I began to question myself. Maybe I had missed something simple. Maybe I was making too much of it. So I stopped opening the notes for 2 days. I hoped distance would settle the feeling. Instead, the closed drawer seemed louder than before. But I became more aware of every small expense. A receipt on the table caught my eye longer than it should. Even simple purchases felt different now. My husband asked casually about this week's spending. The words were small, yet they landed differently. I noticed myself listening more than answering. I answered the way I always did. Still, there was a brief pause before the numbers came out. He noticed the pause, and so did I. After that, something in the room felt slightly changed. There was no argument and no sharp words. Just a little more space between ordinary moments. Myra sat at the dining table that afternoon, quietly filling paper with pastel colors. I looked toward her, but my thoughts were somewhere else. Even gentle moments can pass without being fully felt. She turned and looked at me for a second longer than usual. Her eyes were calm, yet searching. Children often notice what adults try to smooth over. "Mom, we're okay, right?" she asked in the simplest voice. The room suddenly felt smaller. Some questions carry more weight than their words. I smiled right away and answered before thinking. "Yes, sweetheart, we're fine. Sometimes speed is how worry hides itself." She did not ask again. She only moved her chair a little closer to mine. Quiet closeness can say more than many words. I looked at her drawing. There was a house, her and me inside it. On paper, everything still knew how to stay whole. But I knew she had sensed the small changes already. Children feel shifts long before they understand them. What remains unnamed still reaches them. In that moment, guilt arrived clearly. Not because of money, but because uncertainty had entered the room with us. I wished she did not have to carry even a small part of it. That night, sleep stayed far from me. I sat with the notebook again, this time without excuses. The room was quiet enough to hear my own thoughts clearly. I stopped searching for one small mistake. I began looking at the shape of everything together. Suddenly, the numbers seemed to speak in a different language. It was not something recent. The same leak had been there for months. I wondered how long I had walked past it. It was not because I was incapable. I had simply trusted and stopped checking. Trust without attention had become a habit. I realized I had felt safe without really knowing why. Comfort can hide gaps when life is busy. That thought sat heavily but quietly inside me. I had been recording everything. But recording is different from understanding. One fills pages, the other changes choices. I looked at everything again with fresh eyes. Bills, groceries, routines, little decisions. What once felt automatic now felt meaningful. For the first time, I admitted the truth to myself. I did not fully understand our money yet. Strangely, honesty felt like the beginning of peace. I chose not to decide too quickly. I simply started looking closer at what had always passed by. It was a small shift, but it felt honest. I wrote things down more carefully than before. Each number asked for my attention. Slowing down made the room feel quieter. Some spending was need, and some was habit. I had treated them as the same for too long. Seeing the difference changed the weight of both. I did not blame anyone. Not yet. Understanding felt more useful than anger. I began noticing when money left, not only where it went. Timing revealed a pattern I had missed. Quietly, the picture became clearer. The truth was uncomfortable, but it was also useful. Something hidden for a long time had entered the light. I felt uneasy and steadier at once. I knew this was only the beginning. There were no final answers yet. Still, I could sense the direction now. For the first time, I felt present inside our finances. I was no longer only keeping things running. I was truly caring for what held our home together. A few days later, the house felt quieter inside me. The problem was still there, but it no longer filled every corner of my mind. Understanding had begun to soften the noise. I still cooked breakfast, folded clothes, and called Mira to eat. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, I was paying attention in a new way. I was not fully comfortable anymore. Yet, I was no longer walking through the days without seeing. Uneasy clarity felt steadier than blind ease. My husband spoke the same easy way as always. I answered the same way too. But now I listened to what stayed unsaid between the words. I did not rush to ask questions. Some conversations need timing more than volume. I chose patience over reaction. The amount of money mattered less than before. What changed most was my awareness of it. That shift felt larger than any number. I began to feel stronger in small ways. Not because I knew everything, because I trusted myself to keep noticing. Seeing was the first real step. Not toward blame, but toward understanding. And understanding quietly opens the door to change. Some problems do not arrive in one loud moment. They settle quietly inside routines we stop questioning. We notice them only when the room becomes still enough to listen. It was never carelessness. It was the comfort of thinking everything was fine. When life feels manageable, questions often go quiet. Money is rarely just numbers on a page. It carries habits repeated without notice. It also reflects how honest we are with ourselves. Looking closer does not always feel pleasant. Answers can be uncomfortable before they become useful. But clarity gives steadier ground than avoidance. In the end, peace is not measured by how much we have. It grows when we understand where each part has gone. Knowing the path can feel richer than the total.